my name is Ashley Biggs. I'm the marketing and outreach librarian for the Maryland State Library for the Blind and Print Disabled. I am so excited to have everyone here today for our first ever tea tasting program. Our tea tasting program is a work of love. It is, and it is part of our 2025 virtual hike. And for those who are not familiar with the Library for the Blind and Print Disabled, we provide accessible reading options to those who cannot access print. So that's going to be people who are blind, who have low vision, have print disabilities like dyslexia, traumatic brain injury, where processing print is no longer an option. And every year, this is our second year, so I can't say every year, but we're going to say every year, we host a virtual hike. Last year, we did the Appalachian Trail, and we did programming around that. This year, we're stepping a little into fantasy, and we are visiting the 100-acre woods. And my two guests tonight have been instrumental in sharing the program and developing the events that we have been able to do and host for the community. First, I'd like to introduce Nancy, who is quickly becoming my good friend. She just raised her hand. Nancy is the kitchen supervisor at Carroll County's Exploration Commons. Exploration Commons is this amazing facility. I only got to be in it once, but I was totally jealous. They have a makerspace haven, and it is designed for community members and those across the state who like to drive out to Carroll County to explore the making world. They have sewing machines, they have laser printers, 3D printers. They have an amazing test kitchen, which I'm going to make total use of. That Nancy doesn't even know what she's started. And a whole bunch of other stuff that really showcases what our public libraries across the state are doing. And our second guest, her name is Anne. She is currently in a blue shirt. She's waving. And Anne answered the call when Nancy, on my behalf, said, "Hey, I got this crazy girl over at the Library for the Blind and Print Disabled who wants to have a tea party, but virtually. How do we make that happen?" And Anne was like, "I got it." And so she did. And she picked out 3 amazing teas for us to try. She is the owner of Tea and Whimsey, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, but an online shop that is filled with all sorts of tea and goodies for tea enthusiasts. And I've had the chance to explore and look at all the good stuff and find new brands that I have never heard of. And she has a lot of different options, like loose leaf tea and bag tea, and you know, not the weird bag tea you get like in mass market bags, but like the nice bags that are soft to the touch and not coarse. So, you know, there's a little bit of a difference. Like, you know, it's not the Lipton tea bags. These are really nice little things. Well, I thought they were very tactile, but that was me. For those who registered before April 17th, I did mail out your tea packets. In it, you will find 3 teas, which we're going to test tonight. For those who needed Braille, I included a Braille label for each one. The rest went out with large print. And I'm going to shut up now and allow my guests to take us on a magical journey of tea. And thank you guys for being here. There is a chat for the webinar chat, so feel free to drop stuff in there. And there will be time for questions and answers at the end. Thank you, everyone, and I'm going to turn it over to my friends.
Well, I want to welcome you all tonight to our magical, mystical tea adventure. Just to give you a little bit of background about myself, I have been a lifelong lover of tea. I'm not certified. I am not a tea sommelier. I do know some, and but I just love tea. I've always loved tea. When I was younger, I traveled with tea in my purse, and I would go to a restaurant and I'd ask for a cup of hot water. And many times it was hot tap water, which was totally gross, but I, I would send it back and say, I really want it boiling. But it's just, I just love tea. I just love tea. All the things about it. You can drink it, you can bake with it, you can cook with it. There's all sorts of things you can do with tea. I owned a storefront for 12 years, actually called Coffee, Tea, and Whimsey. And I sold my building back in 2011, but I kept the business. So I do online now, and I also do a lot of different shows, which is where I met my friend Nancy, was at the Irish Festival that's held in Timonium every year in November. So that's a little bit about me. I don't know, Nancy, do you want to say anything?
Thanks. It is an honor to have you here, Anne. I'm so excited. And you and I see each other for glimpses of minutes at the different festivals, and everyone loves your tea. And you have really taught me a lot that I've used here with some of our tea enthusiasts. We have one tea enthusiast in the audience tonight. We do have a small live audience we invited, special invitation. So yes, this is our teaching kitchen. We are part of Carroll County Public Library. We have free and low cost programs for anyone who wishes to attend. We are also ADA compatible. And do a lot of programs for folks that might need a little bit of assistance, either with an aid or with equipment and things like that. So we are tea lovers. We have lots of tea equipment here. We have lots of tea. We do lots of tea tastings. So keep an eye out for those programs at Carroll County Public Library. And we are Exploration Commons, and this is our teaching kitchen. So I'm going to turn it back over to Anne. And I guess we're going to start with equipment and water and teas and that type of thing before we taste.
Yeah, before we taste, there's just a couple of things I wanted to show you tonight. There are lots of ways to have tea. Now, I know you all received tea bags in your mailer from Ashley, because that was the simplest way for us to do it. And I don't know if you have your tea bag in front of you. I'm just going to grab one real quick. But if you can feel it, okay, these tea bags from Oliver Pluff, which is a tea company out of Charleston, South Carolina, are actually biodegradable. They are made from all natural products. What you'll find a lot of times in tea bags in grocery stores, not all, but a lot of them, they have microplastics in them. All right, this one does not. All right, and that's something you should keep in mind when buying. The other thing to remember too, with the tea that's sold in the grocery store, and again, it's not all bad. I'm not saying it's all bad. I'm saying there's better. You want to pay attention to the sell-by dates, because number one, you don't know how long this stuff's been on the shelf. Tea really stays fresh for about 2 years. And the thing about tea, it likes to be in a dark place, and it does not like heat. So as I was talking to Nancy in our audience before, the thing about most kitchens is that on either side of your stove, you're going to have like 2 small cabinets. And what's the first thing you think of? Oh, I'll put my spices in there, or I'll put my tea in there. Neither one of those belong there, because the heat destroys the oils in your spices, and it also breaks down the flavors in your tea. So you'll have to get creative with something else for those cabinets because it's not the best spot. I wanted to talk to about loose, because what you have in these tea bags, which I'm just going to tear one open here, and hopefully you can see it because I'm going to dump it in the palm of my hand. Oh, a plate. Thank you, Nancy. What if you can see this? You see how it isn't all ground up, all right? You actually have the leaves. And the reason for that is you need the leaves to open up. That's your steeping time for these leaves to unfurl, because when they're dried, they're rolled. And a lot of these, this is going to fill this tea bag when it's wet. It's going to be full. And that's one of the things you need to remember if you're doing loose tea at all. You have to be careful about how much you put in. Generally, they figure a teaspoon of tea per cup. Your next question is, okay, what's a cup? All right. So I'm going to show you just a couple that I brought with me. This particular teacup that you see here actually holds 6 ounces, which is generally what tea is figured at. When they say, okay, this is a 3-cup teapot, it's probably 18 ounces. All right. Now this one I brought because I drink mine out of something like this. It's called a breakfast cup. And you can see how much larger this is. This holds 12 to 14 ounces. 14 ounces if you fill it all the way to the top. 12 ounces is better. Again, that would be 2 cups of tea is how that's figured. I also brought a couple different types of strainers because there's lots of different strainers. Most of you are familiar, I think, with the famous tea ball. All right. The tea ball has a little latch and it opens up like this. What you want to remember when you're filling something like this, and actually any of these, is on the one side, you're only going to fill this halfway because the tea leaves have to have room to expand. It's actually called the agony of the leaf, believe it or not. And that's because if the leaves aren't able to open, you're not going to get the full flavor and the beauty of the liqueur that is tea. It just snaps shut. This drops into your cup and you pour your water over it, okay, to steep it. When it's done, you simply lift it out to remove it. Another strainer, which is similar to this, but it's called a pincher because it pinches like this. All right, again, you're only filling this halfway. This works really nice in a small teapot. It works really nice in a mug or a cup. Again, it's just dropping it in and brewing. When it's done to where you want it, take it out, lay it down on a tea tidy, which is like a little tiny shaped teapot, or you can just lay it on the edge of your saucer. Another way is this one is called a collapsible strainer. As you can see, it collapses flat, and that's really for storage. But when you're using it, it breaks down and it opens up this big. This you can use in a teacup. It works very nice in a mug. And depending how big the opening is in any teapot, whether it will fit or not. Let's see if this will fit. Yep. There you go. See, and that fits very nicely. And these are generally 18/8 stainless steel. They're dishwasher safe and they don't rust, which is a nice feature. That's the same thing with these other two. 18/8 stainless steel, they don't rust. Now, this is another one. This is an 18-ounce teapot. So this is a 3-cup teapot. This one happens to come with a little strainer. I'm not sure you can see how tiny these holes are. They're tiny, tiny holes. What this does is it works very nicely for things like Irish breakfast, which is actually very small. I mean, they're tiny. They're like little pellets. And it'll also work for Darjeeling. So what happens when you're brewing, you're not losing leaves that are getting into your tea. And this one happens to have a little handle on it. You drop it in, steep it to where you want, and take it out. This one is a little newer in the last few years. This one flips open like this. It's clear. It's BPA free. It's a type of plastic. What you do is you put your loose tea. You can put your tea bags in here. Close the lid, put the water in, close the lid, and let it brew because you can see the color as to how dark you like it. What's going to happen is inside this, I'm not sure whether you can see it or not, is a little strainer. So whether you use loose, which this will catch your loose leaves, or you use the bags, it works either way. When you set it on top, it does a little click here. And what it does is it's opened it up for your tea that you've brewed to come out. All right, but it's keeping the leaves in. When you're finished filling up your mug or your cup, whatever you're drinking out of, it simply drops back down and closes it off. And you set it on its little drip cup so you don't get it all over the table. And then we have, these are a couple of things that over the years, with early tea drinking, this is mostly what you saw. These are tea strainers, again, the same thing, but this time you're putting your leaves right here in the top. You're hooking it on to your teacup like this, and you're pouring your water over, all right? That way, when you reach where you want, you can simply take it off. And they usually have this little drip catcher, this little dish that it sits in. This one happens to be a little bit fancier and heavier. This one is the same deal. If you can brew, put your tea in here, lay it over top of your cup, and pour over it. Or if you've decided to make a teapot full of tea with loose leaves, you pour it through something like this or something like this to catch the leaves. The one thing to remember about if you're doing a pot of tea, a large pot where you're leaving the leaves in loose, tea, after it's steeped to where you want it, it doesn't get better, it will get bitter. All right. So unless you like really, really, really strong tea, that's not what you're going to want to do. If you're serving a group of people, the odds are you're going to go through this pot very quickly. So that's not an issue. But if you're brewing a large pot just for yourself, you probably want to go with some kind of strainer or use the tea bags that you take out. Because otherwise, as I said, it won't get better, it'll get bitter, and you'll be like, yuck. So I think that's kind of covered all the different kinds of strainers that I have. Tonight, we're going to be tasting 3 different teas. The first one is Darjeeling. So what I want to tell you about Darjeeling is that it was actually, this part of India was owned by the British, all right? And the British signed it over to the Indians in India back in the 50s. Yeah, actually in 56. And what happened then was a lot of turmoil in the tea industry because they were not prepared for this. They had always worked for someone else. So there was a lot of disarray in the Darjeeling area. Darjeeling tea comes from a place called Darjeeling. It is an area in India, in northern India. You'll hear sometimes about first flush teas, second and autumnal teas. First flush is the first picking. And the first flush teas are generally not shipped anywhere. They're drank locally because they have a short shelf life, okay, of maybe 6 months that they're any good. And after that, they've lost most of their flavor. The Darjeeling we're tasting tonight is one of the autumnals. Those are picked in September and October of the year. And these are dried. I'm going to read a little bit from my notes because I wanted to make sure I got it correct for you guys. That the first thing they do is called withering with the leaves. And the leaves are spread out evenly on racks, on stacked racks. And they're in a room that's 68 to 75 degrees, and there's constant airflow. The circulation of the fans goes on for 18 to 32 hours. All right. And this is to help dry the leaf. All right. Then the next thing that happens is the rolling of the leaf. These little bits of pieces here, these have all been rolled. All right. Some of it's done by hand, some of it's done by machine. And that takes about 30 minutes for them to roll the leaves. And then they have what they call oxidation. And that's when, after the rolling, the tea goes into a humidity chamber. All right. That is about 90 to 95% humidity. And the temperature again is about 68 to 72 degrees. All right. And there's a lot of ventilation. And again, this takes about 1 to 2 hours. Then the next thing that happens, there is a process to all this, is the drying, because you want to halt the oxidation now. All right. And so the tea has to be heated as rapidly as possible. And they do that by putting it in ovens that are about 194 degrees for 15 to 20 minutes. What that does is that draws the moisture content down to 4 to 5%. And then the tea is sorted, whether it's whole or it's broken. All right. And then after that, it's packaged. So it's a lot of steps in the process to that cup of tea that you may or may not realize. Something else, backtracking a little when I was talking before about tea leaves and a lot of packaged teas, you'll find what they call, they're made from fannings. And fannings used to be called what they swept up off the floor. All right. But it'll have the twigs and it'll have the dust. And that process, then that is all ground. All right. So when you take, for instance, a Lipton tea bag, and I'm not dissing Lipton, okay, because Lipton was out there for many years. It gives you that, if you notice that, if you've brewed Lipton or Red Rose or something like that, it's like instant coffee. It's instant. As soon as you pour that water over it, it's turning dark. And 30 seconds later, it looks like it's finished. And that's because it's been ground so fine. But to me, I think it loses a lot of the flavor that you get from the whole leaf. And which is why when you're brewing whole leaf, like in the tea bags or loose, it needs time to open up so you can get the floral nuances from your tea, for lack of a better description. So I think what we're going to do is to go ahead. We have our water boiled. Hopefully, I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to get your water hot. So you want it to boil. You want at least 195 degrees for the Darjeeling, okay? And I think we're going to take some over to Nancy and get her started. But yeah, there's, like I said, they have something interesting about tea is they have what they call picking standards, because up until, I don't know, it's been in the last 20 or 30 years, tea has always been picked by hand. But now they do have machines that pick. All right. But still, the majority of it is picked by hand. And they have a system for them. What they call the imperial tea is one bud and one leaf is picked. The fine tea is one bud and two leaves. Then you have medium, which is one bud and three leaves. And then coarse, which is one bud and more than three leaves. And the leaves are being picked from the top of the plant. All right, because that's where the freshness comes from with your leaves. All right. Something else is that you can infuse tea either with hot, cold, or iced water. And I know most of you have heard about sun tea, about setting your tea out for the sun, you know, to basically brew it for you. But what happens when you do the sun tea with either cold, using cold, or iced water, is that the liqueur has none of the bitterness or the astringency that sometimes hot water will draw out of your tea. So you'll get actually a much smoother tea, if that's something you like. Also, something else, if you're brewing tea to make iced tea, I always suggest that people brew a nice pitcher of your tea, take an ice cube tray, an empty ice cube tray to set on your counter, and fill your ice cube tray with that tea. All right. So when you go to have your iced tea, you use those iced tea cubes for your tea. And that way your tea is not all watered down. I know I've had many times in a restaurant where I've ordered iced tea, and at some point I'm looking at it going, this looks like water at this point, because it wasn't brewed that heavily. So that's just kind of a little tip. And you can also add, if you like fruit in your tea, you can add it to your ice cubes. All right. So how are we doing on time?
45 seconds.
We have 45 seconds. Okay. We're steeping for 3. All right. So you want to keep an eye on your time as to how long you steep. Whether you're using a timer, an alarm on your watch, an alarm on your oven, or one of the little hourglass. They sell little hourglass tea things. But tea is a lot like tasting. If you've ever done a wine tasting or an olive oil tasting, they're done very similar in that some is put in a small cup with the olive oil. Thank you, Nancy. You want it in the palm of your hand to warm it. And so with either the wine or the olive oil, you're putting that in your mouth and you're holding it, because you're tasting at the front and you're tasting in the middle, and you're going to hold it before you taste in the back. And you're going to have 3 different things that pop out on your taste buds. So if we can take a minute that y'all can taste your tea. If it's too hot, it will be hot with boiling water. One of the things that you can do, can I ask you to hold this for a second? Sure. Right. Depending on how good your aim is, we'll see how good mine is, because boy, this bad boy is hot. You can take and you can pour it back and forth. Yeah. So, you know, it will cool it down some, or you can give it a minute. If you need to give it a minute before you taste it, because you don't want to burn the roof of your mouth. Not that any of us have ever done that with tea, coffee, or pizza. Oh, yeah. So when I talked earlier about how big the leaves get, all right, this is that tea bag, wet and dry. And
what it's about 4 times full?
4 times fuller. Yeah. And what I can do is I can tear this open. All right. Yeah. But I'm getting it everywhere. All right. But you can see it compared to where it started. That's where it started. That's where it's at.
They all unfurled.
They do. It is a beautiful tea. And something else to remember with your tea leaves, if you recycle, if you compost, if you garden, your plants love these tea leaves.
I'm sorry for the interruption, Anne, but could you go into more detail and explain what the tea looks like before and what it looks like after? Maybe talk about the texture, talk about the colors. Some of our audience is actually unable to see what's on the screen.
All right, I apologize for that. With the loose tea, you're going to have like little bits, like, I don't know, little bits of twigs, but they're actually leaves. They'll feel very coarse if you rub them together with your fingers, and they're small. And it's hard to tell that they're actually rolled because they are so tightly rolled. But they're dark brown. Some are kind of crushed. Some you'll see might be a little bit of dust in it. That's from the teeny tiny pieces. And
when you say that they're rolled, can you give that a little bit of a description? Like is it like a fruit roll up kind of roll, or is it more like I'm rolling a piece of paper really tight?
it would be like a tiny roll of paper. Oh, tiny. I'm trying to find something big enough that I could show you. On the tea that's already been steeped, obviously it's wet. And the leaf is much bigger, all right? It's almost the size of your finger pad, all right? As opposed to the dry, which maybe is a fifth of your finger pad, all right? Yeah, like,
Okay.
I don't have thick hair.
After it's steeped, does it change color? Does it change texture?
Well, obviously, after it's steeped, it does change its texture in that now it's softer, okay? It's not as brittle as the dry is. And
It's kind of mulchy.
yeah, it is kind of like wet mulch. Yeah, it does remind me of wet mulch. We were just planting stuff the other day, and yeah, but it doesn't taste like mulch, I can tell you that much.
The pieces have grown in size.
Oh, yes, all the pieces have grown in size, and they are slightly lighter than what you started with, very slight.
Okay, so like it goes from like a dark brown twiggy color to more of like, say, a
well, this is the dry is a dark brown tending towards black. All right.
Oh.
All right. When it's brewed, it's more of a brown. Well, yeah, there is some green in there too. But
oh, did we lose connection? It seems to be frozen.
the interesting thing about tea, no matter,
We
think I
seem
know a
to have
song
been
from it.
frozen for a minute. Can you,
We're
I'm
back.
so
I
sorry.
think
Okay, yeah, you are back. Yeah.
nobody died. We're all good. So that's what I used to tell my kids all the time. As long as nobody dies, it's fixable. But the one thing about tea, which comes from Camilla senses, which I should have started out with, whether it's black, green, white, yellow, it all comes from one leaf and one plant. All right. Except for Rooibos, and sometimes called red tea, which comes from a plant, which is actually a legume. So anyway, they all come from the same plant. So what I'd like you to do, if possible, if your tea is cooled enough, is to take a little sip or a slurp, however you like to take it. And me personally, I do not take sweeteners in my tea. I just like it black. If you like it sweet, that's not a problem. If you want, Darjeeling is easy enough to add sugar or milk to. Not all teas you want to add milk to. Trust me on this. So let's all take a test, take a taste of the tea, and see if you can hold it in your mouth and give it a few seconds before you swallow.
And this is the Darjeeling, right?
That's correct.
Okay, just wanted to verify which one I'm picking up.
But Darjeeling is a really nice tea. It's also used a lot in oolongs.
And this is so delicious.
Oh, thank you.
This is really good.
Well, you brewed it. What do you think of it, Nancy, in our audience? Okay. Would you prefer it with sugar or cream? Okay. Straight up and black is the best way.
I'm gonna say Splenda.
That's okay, but you know, that's not real sweetener. My thing is, if you're going to have it, have sugar. Or honey. I do like honey in my pumpkin chai.
So before we move
Lattes.
on to the next tea, I wanted to just quickly showcase what you're doing on the screen, if that's okay.
That's
So
fine.
Nancy and Anne have in front of them multiple teacups that Nancy has her own set of 3 and Anne has her own set of 3. They range in various sizes. Some look like they can take about 6 to 8 ounces. Some look like they can take a little bit more, possibly up to 12 ounces. Some of them have a strainer like tea infuser. This will be flat, circular, that goes on top of the teacup with a little bit of a cup inside made of mesh. There are many versions of that. You can get some that are just like on a that are flat and circular that go on top of the teacup all the way. There are some that just sit across for the teacup, and then there are going to be some that sit inside the teacup, and those are going to be more shaped like a if anybody knows what a Keurig is, they're going to feel like a Keurig pod, but they're going to be a mixture of metal and mesh. Also in front of them, they have a teapot / strainer that is made of, it looks like plastic. Yep. And it kind of, if you've ever put your hands on a food processor, it has that symmetrical shape of a food processor, like a mini one, not the big KitchenAid kind, but the little ones. It has a open and shut lid that you use your thumb to press, and there's a filter at the bottom that keeps the tea there. Think of like a French press mixed with a food processor. that's it kind of feels like the two of those together.
Well,
Also,
yeah, and on the Ash, on the lines of when you're talking about a press, this one you don't actually have the pump where you have to push it down. That action happens when you set this on your cup or your mug, and it pushes up from the bottom and allows the tea to come out while keeping the tea leaves in.
ooh, reverse
you-
French press.
Yes, so when you take that off, then that will drop. That closes off the tea from draining out the bottom and allows the leaves to sit in there. And you can then set that down until you're ready for another cup.
You know what,
Okay.
Anne? I have one of these.
you?
Yes. And it's fantastic to steep your tea. And then you do that over a big glass of ice.
Yep.
And it makes your iced tea instantaneously, but makes one serving if you don't need to make a whole pot.
This is, this one is actually what my son uses. He loves this. I, on the other hand, use something a little different. I use a tea basket. That has a little handle on it that fits inside my teapot that I brew and then I lift out.
And the tea baskets, again, most have a a scoop-like bottom that kind of feels like a half of a ball, that you can set across. The
Yeah.
other type of strainers that that Anne was showing are tea. They're basically round cylindrical tea balls. They have they're a mesh strainer, and you fill one side up with the tea, you close it.
No, back up.
Oh, did I miss that?
Yeah, you don't fill it all the way. You
No, you
only
don't.
fill it half. The half that you have open, you're only filling half. So you're
Half of
filling
the
a
half.
if a half or a quarter
Oh,
of the entire tea
I
ball.
think everybody feels
But this is
They
very
do.
light and bendable metal. So for texture wise, it's kind of going to feel very light. But I promise you it's not cheap. It does press a little bit. The other type of strainer that she showcased is one that can pinch. The pinch opens up like think of a pair of tweezers when you nail clippers. When you push on the handle, it opens up the nail clipper. You can the safety kind, not the kind you use for kids, not the kind for adults, but it opens up the two halves, and you do exactly as Miss Ann says. You fill half of a half, and then you let go, and it will snap shut, and that's what you put in your teacup. Also in front of them, they have a couple various plates. That is where they have been showcasing the tea. So when they open up the tea bag, they are actually putting them on plates. So when we go over these again, when we go over the next tea, it will be on a plate. One side will be dry tea, one side will be wet tea.
Thank you, Ash. And just a little note on the pinchers that are like this, like that guy, I don't know, with some game. Pac-Man, that's it. It's kind of like a little Pac-Man. And this type where you're only filling it up. Again, the reason you don't fill it is you saw, or we're able to tell how big the leaves expanded in the tea bag once it was brewed. All right. If you overfill this, and I've seen it time and time again, people will fill the whole half side. What happens? The leaves can't expand. And then what happens is they keep pushing. They keep pushing. So down the line, this, like this, is not going to close because you've stretched it out. All right. And you're going to end up getting leaves floating in your tea. Not that they're going to hurt you if you drink them or eat them, but it's kind of nice not to have them floating around. We're ready to move on to the next one. Okay, this is young Hyson. And young Hyson, yeah, thank you. Yeah, if you could, we're going to go ahead and steep the young Hyson while I'm talking. And you can go ahead and steep yours now if you like. Young Hyson is actually a green tea. It's a very old tea. It was actually one of the teas that were grown at the Boston Tea Party. Just as a little history note, the Boston Tea Party wasn't the only tea party. There were actually 17 tea parties throughout the colonies. Yeah. And one of them happened to be in Chestertown. And the type of tea that was thrown, because you'll show, there are pictures that they show crates being tipped into the water, was not loose tea, was not tea bags. And I apologize, I forgot to bring it. It's a tea brick. That is, a tea brick is a little smaller than this book, all right? And it has imprints on both sides. The imprints on the one I have, the front kind of looks like the Colosseum with the columns on it, and you can feel the pattern. On the back side, there are 8 squares. So, and again, you can feel those squares. That is how tea was packed and brought down from the mountains. All right, so the bricks, it's compressed tea. And so the bricks were packaged, they were put into a basket that went on the back of the person that was going to carry it down. And because where they were coming from was high up in the mountains, like the Himalayas, and it was like a one-person path. It was like a goat path, basically. And that's how tea was brought down. And that's how it was sent to China, to Thailand, Tibet, places like that. Besides being able to drink it, it was also used as currency. So when you think of the Boston Tea Party, it was tea bricks that were dumped, not tea bags, which didn't come till much later, or loose tea. And tea bags, I can't think of the guy's name, were actually designed by a tea merchant who wanted to send some samples. So he sewed up some loose tea in these bags. And when the different merchants received it, they thought, oh, well, I'll just brew it like this. And ergo, the tea bag was invented.
Really quickly, we did have someone ask if you could finish your thought on the Darjeeling. You had started talking about flavor profile and paused, and that's when I jumped in with the description of the stuff in front of you. And I think I may have just derailed you, and I apologize.
Oh. Well, okay. So on Darjeeling, which I have here, like I said, it's a black tea that's grown in Darjeeling, which is in northern India, in the Himalayan mountains. Darjeelings have a very complex flavor, somewhat earthy. There's nothing smoky about them like you'll find in other teas. But it's actually it's just a nice drinking tea. It's what I call, if you just want like a plain tea that doesn't have any floral notes in it, or doesn't have spices or whatever, Darjeeling is the tea to go to. Anyway, that's what I think. So we'll see what you think. Yeah. Did that answer your question?
Give me the microphone.
So while Anne's finishing getting the tea bags out of our samples over here as well, I grew up in a world of sensory evaluation, and there's actually from several different tea places, you can get a tea tasting wheel. We're not going to go through all the descriptors on here, but when you're doing your tea notes and keeping a notebook, you can look at things like earthy and then say woody or mineral. It's done. Yeah, you can take them out. Fruity or spicy, nutty. And for me, this was a very clean black tea. I got a little bit of a dark note. I got a little bit of a compost note, which isn't a bad thing. It's not a negative thing. I got a little bit of mineral. I didn't get animal, so I didn't get any of that musky note. And I did get a little bit of nuttiness to it, just very, very tiny bit, more like walnut shells type flavor. So that dark brown, too many. So there's lots of ways you can keep records on your tea tastings. You can go online. There's lots of different sheets where you can write down the tea that you tasted and the brand and how you steeped it and how many minutes. Anne hasn't talked yet about water and tea kettles. When we get our long steep tea at the end, we'll finish up with that. But she's getting out the dry young, how do you pronounce it again? Hyson? Young Hyson. And it is kind of a green, silvery, needly, almost looks like dry rosemary a little bit, or dry sage. It has a sagey color. It has that silver green to it. Yeah, maybe sage looking. Our camera's not so great in here, and I know some of you can't see. So we'll describe it that way. Nancy, anything you would add to that? Green, needly, dry. And then, oh my goodness, our wet steeped tea.
Kale.
It looks like cooked kale or cooked spinach. It's olivey green. It's mushy. All the pieces are separated and kind of piled together. It's not at all what I expected it to look like, but it looks like cooked spinach, and it kind of has that texture too. When you feel it, you can feel the ribs of the tea leaf. You can feel the material in there, a little bit of dried parts still. Does it smell like? Let's try. So I'm smelling the dry one. Doesn't have much aroma.
Doesn't smell like kale or spinach.
So I'm smelling the wet one. Oh, it's delightful. It's very light. It's not grassy. It has a very distinct aroma. A little herbal.
Grasses in jasmines.
I'll go past this. You can take that.
Oh, okay. I'm back. Okay. The young Hyson, all right, is obviously green tea leaves and that are picked in the spring. All right. So it would be first flush. And they're thinly rolled in order to give them this long, twisted appearance, which, I'll be honest, it's hard for me to see this, but it can be even harder for you. But again, as Nancy said, it kind of looks like dried rosemary sometimes. Yeah, yeah. But again, when you get to the wet, where it has been brewed, the leaves again are much bigger. Obviously, they're softer. They're about the color of cooked kale, so they're a deeper green or a spinach. And they have just a nice flavor note to them. Because the idea with your tea is not to be overwhelmed. A lot of times, if you're in a store or even at a place that sells tea, that sells loose tea, what can happen is when you go to smell the dry tea, you can be very overwhelmed with the flavors, all right, that have maybe been added to it, like rose hips or lemongrass or bergamot. And depending on the quality of the tea is whether that smell And that taste is going to follow through when you brew it. Because a lot of times it doesn't. And you're like, well, wait a minute. It smells like this, but when I make it, I don't get any of that. Which again is why you want to try to find a nice quality tea from a reputable company. And there are lots of companies out there. There's lots of tea out there. There are thousands of teas. And again, there's teas that can run $1,000 a kilo, which is 2.2 pounds. Or they can run $35. It all depends on the tea. So if you all have brewed your green tea, why don't we take a taste and see what we think? I would call it, I wouldn't call it gold, but it's a kind of a deeper, oh, maybe it's a light gold with some brown to it.
Like a honey?
Yeah, maybe. Well, no, a dark honey can be almost black.
Honey.
Yeah.
It was green when I first steeped it. It was very pale.
Uh-huh.
And then all of a sudden it turned this beautiful autumn color.
Well, and that's what you want. That's what you want. So
Nancy, can you repeat that into the mic? Because I couldn't quite hear you.
I don't know. Oh, we were talking about
We were talking about the color, and I said it's almost autumnal. When I first made the tea, it was very light green. It was very pale, and as it sat, it turned this beautiful shade of autumn, or like a nice honey, like a clover
Autumn
honey.
leaves.
Autumn leaves makes you think of fall. The color.
It does. But you notice it has a really different profile, taste profile than the Darjeeling did. I wouldn't call it grassy.
No, a lot of people don't like green tea because of that, and this doesn't have any of those notes.
Yeah, like I said, you'll find that a lot of times in jasmine teas. It tastes like, I don't know, grass or hay.
Hay.
Yeah, or hay. Oh, let's do the flavor wheel.
So we can have minty or fennelly. You can have wet straw, fresh hay, bamboo.
I think I've never eaten bamboo.
If you use a steamer like we have.
Well, that's true.
You get that fresh cut grass, wet straw, all things that are vegetal descriptors.
But
not green beans and peas and asparagus like the green tea can be sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any comments on anybody tasting on what they think of the tea?
We haven't gotten comments from people who are tasting the tea. If they would like to drop that in the chat, please feel free to do so. If you are not able to drop in the chat, there is an ability to raise your hand. Let me just remind myself how to do that, because my brain just was like, I apologize. I haven't raised my hand in a meeting in a long time. I usually just cut right in. But to raise,
go for it, Ashley.
so you can raise or lower your hand. You can use Alt-Y on a Windows or Option-Y on a Mac. If you want to say something like verbally. We got an I love these teas, so
well, thank you.
Everybody, I'm keeping track of the questions. I will make sure that every question gets answered before we go.
Okay, well, we need to steep the next one, which is your red chai. And again, as I mentioned, this is actually Rooibos. There are no tea leaves in it. They are actually legumes. And these come from South Africa, about 140 miles north of Cape Town. All right. The thing about chai, because actually chai also means tea. So it's kind of like you're saying chai chai, tea tea, for lack of a better description. With the red chai or the rooibos, these are caffeine free. All right. So if you have issues with caffeine, um, any of the rooibos are perfect for drinking. There's the red chai is the chai is smooth, has a lot of aroma to it. It's got kind of a light sweetness. There's an earthy character to it. And this needs to brew much longer. All right. But to show you, we've opened up a bag here. And with the, with the chai, you're going to have, generally speaking, these 7 different spices that create your chai mix. All right. They're not always in, but most of them are. You're going to have cardamom, which I can show you. All right. I'll get this one day. But whether or not you can see this or not, this is a pod of cardamom. Kind of can be difficult to see. It's probably a little over a quarter of an inch long. And that's generally added to chai, as is cinnamon. Now, it can be cinnamon sticks, it can be ground cinnamon. Then there's ginger. Ginger, I love ginger because ginger gives it a kick. All right. It gives it a kick along with pepper, because a lot of times it has black pepper. Sometimes it's white, but generally it's black pepper in it. You'll also have cloves. You'll have mace, and you can have nutmeg. And all of these things are put into this blend to make chai tea. And this kind of looks like, if you've ever seen a tree stump ground up and you have all these little bits, that's what we have here, little bits. And they're actually this kind of rust colored red. All right. And they're very tiny. For something like this with rooibos, it's best to do it in a tea bag because it is cut so fine. So you don't end up having it all over the place. Or again, you can use something like this basket strainer that has very, very fine holes in it in order to keep the leaves from coming out. Thank you, Nancy. Nancy has opened up one of the wet tea bags. Can I ask you this? And I'm going to kind of describe, again, we have the cardamom, and the cardamom that started out hard, it's kind of a little pod, has now softened up. And it has like small seeds in it, for lack of a better description. Then we have black peppercorns, and these are like little BBs, if you're familiar with the BB. And then, let's see, this is ginger. So the ginger has been chopped up, but again, it has opened up into the tea. And the tea, again, is a dark reddish rust color. All right. And the leaves have gotten bigger, but they're not huge, not like it was in our other teas. But again, this will give you some spice to your tea. This is a great one if you like honey, to add honey to, or sugar, or milk. A lot of times in the fall, I do a chai latte, and I'll brew my chai tea. I'll add honey to it, And then because I just like that kick, I, I will add some liquid ginger syrup to it. Not a lot, but it's just enough to kick it up a notch, as Emerald used to say. And then I add my steamed milk to it. And that makes a delicious evening drink. So I think
So I am so shocked how big these cardamom pods got in that little tea bag. They are 3 times the size. It's the size almost of a large sunflower seed, with the shell still on it from inside the bag. So I was shocked when I opened that up and those came out of the tea bag.
they're kind of big like a pumpkin seed can be, although the pumpkin seed is flatter, and these are more rounded.
Let's taste. I'm excited.
Now, I can really taste the spices in this. And again, I think with chai, a really nice addition is honey to it. And I very rarely put any sweetener in any tea I drink, but I do like it in chai because it sort of pushes things up, brings the flavors more forward to you. But I can taste the cinnamon. I can taste the mace, a little bit of the ginger. Those are the ones that are coming through to me.
It's really hot, so when it
It
cools
is.
down a little bit, the flavor will change. I know when we do our tea tasting in here, sometimes we taste really hot and then let it sit and let it calm down a little bit, and we taste again, and the flavor, it really changes.
You can definitely do this as an iced tea. Would make a very nice iced tea. So those are the teas that we had tonight to taste. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I got my love of tea across to you because that's what it boils down to. I love tea. I have always loved tea. And to me, it's the perfect drink. With tea, tea is not like coffee. People pick up coffee on the run. They're always on the run with coffee. And with tea, tea gives you that, I don't know, it gives you not a right, but a reason to sit down. All right, to sit down and really enjoy the tea and savor it. Whether you're doing high tea, which, you know, has sweets and the finger sandwiches, or you're doing, oh, I'm sorry, that's afternoon tea. If you're doing high tea, you're having meats and potatoes, that kind of thing with it. Or if you're having a cream tea, which is basically a cup of tea and if you have a cookie or a scone, which Nancy has made some beautiful scones, I will say. But again, it's about sitting down, whether you're enjoying it with a friend. It doesn't have to be elaborate. Don't be afraid to try it. It's just an enjoyable drink. So I thank you very much for joining us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you,
so
Anne,
much,
so
Anne.
much. Yeah.
So we have a couple of questions, and I'm gonna hit them in the order that I was able to see them. The first is, how long to sun brew tea?
Okay. How long do you steep sun-brewed tea? I would say anywhere from 3 to 4 hours. It depends if you have it out in direct sunlight. And again, you're going to go by the color. And it is going to take longer, but you're not going to run into it potentially being bitter or astringent. It'll be a much smoother tea. But again, probably 3 to 4 hours.
And that's a good range for food safety as well. Get it in the fridge at that point. Yeah.
Okay. Is there a reason it's pronounced Darjeeling, or the way you pronounce it, versus how when it's spelled Dar, Darj?
Well,
E-E-L-I-G.
it's pronounced lots of different ways. Okay. Sometimes I say Darjeeling, and sometimes I say Darjeeling. Either way is fine. Anybody who drinks tea will know what you're talking about.
Okay. I've lived all over this country. I've learned to pronounce everything the wrong way. So, is it bad to re-steep loose tea to brew another cup?
Oh my gosh, that's one of the things we teach here in the kitchen is we use things until they're no longer usable. We don't like waste. Depending on the tea, and chime in, but a lot of our teas, as long as you keep them in the infuser, either lay them on paper towel and dry them, put them in the fridge, and re-steep, especially pu'er. We do our pu'ers 5-6 times, and each steep is different.
With pu'er, you can't, because that's really a very robust tea. But something to keep in mind with your teas is your first brew of your tea is where most of your caffeine is. All right. If you're trying to get away from caffeine, or say you don't have any decaf or caffeine-free tea and you want a cup of tea, brew the cup of tea, take the leaves out and throw the tea out. And then brew the leaves again, because that's going to remove about 80% of the caffeine that was in those leaves. And you'll notice each time you brew it, it gets lighter, it gets lighter, it gets lighter. Just a funny story. Many, many years ago in the 90s, I went to Maine to a rug hooking camp. And there was an older lady there because we stayed at this woman's house. And she said, "Oh, let me make you a cup of tea. Do you want old tea or new tea?" And I said, "Well, I'm not sure what the difference is." Well, the old tea, I think, had been gone through, I don't know, 20 times. So there really wasn't any tea left. So I said, "Well, I think I'll take a new tea if you don't mind."
I think our grandparents used to call it like wet sock tea or something. Yeah. Good question. Good question. What else, Ash?
The last question was, can you reuse a tea bag?
You mean
In your
to-
tea? Like, you've used it once, you want to make a
Oh.
second cup, can you use it
no,
again?
you can make a second cup with it. You can,
Okay.
depending on how strong you like it, you can do a third cup with it.
Okay.
Again,
Just
it
so the
depends
tea-
on the tea that's in that tea bag.
Ah,
It's a lot of fines. You've lost everything with that first steep.
If you're doing a white tea can take 10 minutes, and it's a very, very light tea. And really, you're only going to get one brew out of it. But they're going to be really long leaves that have been twisted, because it's usually white peony or a pine mouton. And it will almost be yellowish in color, but a very pale yellow. But that one's really only good for one. But the rest of them, yeah, you can do it.
Any questions from our studio audience? Oh, so Nancy's asking, our friend Nancy in the studio is asking about tea bags that you can fill yourself. They're usually paper, some are more of a silk.
Those are usually called tea sacks, SACS, and it's like an envelope almost. That's long, and you put your tea in it, and you put the flap down in it and brew it. You're literally making your own tea bags, which you can certainly do if you want to buy your loose tea and make your own tea bags.
I do that a lot. If I'm in here, I need a lot of tea. I don't have time to strain it. But I don't think you could actually empty it and dry it and reuse it. They're too fragile. And they're porous. So
I've seen some kind of crafts done with dried tea bags. I haven't gone there, but I've seen it.
We have one last question. Billy asks, does Rooibos, if I'm saying that right, only come from South Africa?
Rooibos, yes, only comes
Rooibos.
from South Africa.
Okay. This one is for my audience attendees. I have a question. You know, we're trying this for the first time, a tea tasting program. I myself am a tea lover, especially in the winter. But coffee first, then tea. I saw that Anne shook her head. She's like, nope, tea all the time. Coffee first, then tea for me. But if you guys would like to do this in person one day, where we actually get a chance to explore it hands-on, you know, touch the teas and smell them and do all the fun stuff together, I'm totally down for that. And I'm throwing my hosts under the bus and telling them that they're going to be down for that because we love Miss Anne. And I'll bribe her. I'll make her my scones, which could rival Miss Nancy's. Just saying.
Have a scone off.
We're going to have a scone off. But if you guys would like to do this, please, in person, please let me know. You can drop it in the chat. You can email me privately. You can shoot me a text on my cell phone. So yeah.
Yeah, and Ashley, we have tea programs here at least once a quarter, sometimes twice. We look at general types of tea tasting. So we go through white, black, rooibos, oolong, etc., pu'er. Then we'll deep dive into some teas and we'll do one type. We did a mystery tea tasting. Friends of ours came back from China and Japan, and we spent the afternoon using Google Translate to figure out what mountain range they came from. And some said they very fine tea.
So how would people find out about this amazing tea program you do?
Sure. So all of our programs here in the Teaching Kitchen and the Makerspace, if you go either to library.carr.org, so that's CAR like Carroll County, and you can go to programs and you can sort by tea, or you can go directly to our website, which is explorationcommons at 50east.org. And you can go on there and sort and see all the program descriptions. Many are free, some have a small charge. But we welcome you to all the programs. Question from the audience.
Last question. Oh, I'm sorry. I've got one more question.
That's what it was.
Yeah. So if all teas come from the same plant, how are they ultimately made to be different?
There are so many things. Some are, yes, here's a book.
I highly recommend this book.
What's it called?
The New Tea Companion. It's Jane Pettigrew and Bruce Richardson's book, and it's teas throughout the world. Your library will also have lots of books on tea and how they're processed, because it's the picking, the drying, the withering, the smoking, the pan drying, the air drying, the outdoor drying, the indoor drying. Yeah. Ben.
It's all in the process for one leaf.
But it does all start with the same first product. Kind of like wine.
A grape.
I think that's actually on our next to-do list is a wine tour of so just, you know. All right, everyone. It is 7:19 and I totally want to respect everyone's time. I also hear my 21-month-old starting to scream, so I'm sure she's saying it's time. Thank you all so much for being here. And thank you so much for putting your heart and soul into this and being so communicative and answering all my questions and random emails. And Nancy, you're quickly becoming one of my BFFs, and I love you. You're amazing.
Hey, Ashley, I'm going to put a plug in for our scone video.
Yes. Yeah.
Don't forget that.
Don't forget that. So Nancy worked hard on that, y'all. She kept me from going nuts because I was not able to do it. She did it all. Just anyway.
So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. It's been a great opportunity to work with the Library for the Blind and Print Disabled. It's something Anne and I never thought in a million years we would be part of, and so we're thrilled to be here.
All right. Well, you guys have a great night. Oh, you're amazing. Thank you, guys. Good night.
Night.